Hey everyone, just about to get started here on the Stars and Strikes halftime, or excuse me, the post-game show. The U.S. under-23s won 1-0 against Costa Rica in their Olympic qualifying match. Ryan, we ready to get going?
Yes, sir. Just before we get started, just a couple big story points that we're going to talk about. I think we're going to get right into our player ratings, right? But just huge performance from David Ochoa first and foremost. It was a rough game overall, but he was definitely the standout. He's, I think, the main guy that stuck us through it, because it was a rough game to watch, but thanks to the goalkeeper, we were able to come out with that 1-0 win.
Absolutely. Jesus Ferriera, continuing his good run of form for the national team, is not a very prolific scorer for FC Dallas. Only had 1 goal and 1 assist last season. However, he had 2 goals and 3 assists for the senior national team on his debut. The winning goal today. What'd you make of his performance today?
Look, I mean, I know, like you said, he's been a pretty prolific striker, especially against that game against Trinidad and Tobago. He's been very, very solid in his performances with the United States. But today, I honestly he could have done better. I mean, his movement was good, the goal was good, but there were times when he could have done even more, and that's saying a lot to expect that much out of a striker. It's good on his part, that I'm in the position to ask even more of a player that already gave us 1 goal. But there were multiple opportunities where he could have bagged. Specifically, there was one, obviously the one that hit the post, and then there was a little dink to the left side of the goal, and then that breakaway off of his movement, the one-on-one against the keeper. So those are 3 big chances he missed. Obviously, his goal was the game winner, but definitely could have gotten some more as well.
Yeah, and one thing I really enjoyed about his performance, as all of them, is his willingness to press. And I think that's why he's getting the nod over a guy like Sebastian Soto. When he's playing in that false 9, he allows the other players to have more space, to counterattack quickly. And we saw that with the goal. And honestly, within 2 minutes, he almost had a goal, the one you mentioned off the post, won the ball back just outside the 18, quick little touch. And it really should have been 1-0 right there. And then the one you didn't mention was the chance right before he got injured. Hopefully he is okay. It looked like it was just a cramp, so he should be good to go on Sunday for the next game. But he's got to finish that one too. One-on-one with the keeper. Poor first touch, and the chance is lost.
Yeah, and the thing is, it especially showed after that injury, that when he was taken off, the difference that was made when Sebastian Soto came onto the field. I mean, that the pressing was kind of night and day between Ferrera and Soto. Obviously, Costa Rica was kind of trying to take hold of the game at that point, but a lot of that was due to the fact that there was no real press against their midfield from our attacking players. We were welcoming that attacking force from Costa Rica, and so that's definitely something I want to see out of Sebastian Soto in the future, if he's going to want to challenge, Jesus for that position.
Yeah, and you mentioned the difference between Soto and Ferrera. I think there was just a big difference between the first half and the second half. In the first half, the U.S. completely dominated. They dominated possession. They dominated the chances throughout the game. In the second half, it was the complete reverse. Costa Rica started hot, and they pretty much dominated the entire second half. They had the majority of the chances. David Ochoa keeping the U.S. in it with a couple really big saves throughout the match. And the U.S. did not have a ton of stuff going forward. A couple of their attacking players didn't really get into the game. Benji Michel, I didn't really see do anything throughout the game. Jonathan Lewis had a couple nice opportunities, a few good crosses, but other than that, not really much going for it. So the second half was mostly heavy legs and just trying to hold on, and that is exactly what they did. We're going to get into our player ratings on the game for us. So as always, we're going to start with the goalkeeper. Ryan, I gave David Ochoa 9 out of 10. He was absolutely superb today.
Yes, sir. I also went with the 9 out of 10. Like I mentioned before, I think he was probably the reason that we won tonight. Without him, it could have been a very different story, especially in that second half. So that's definitely man of the match and a 9 out of 10 overall.
Yep, I have him as man of the match too. Moving on to the back line, left back, Sam Vines, 8 out of 10. He had the assist to the goal to Jesus Ferrera, a nice little cross. He had a couple of really good crosses throughout the match. I thought he was superb. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it's like you're almost looking at my paper over here too, but I also gave him an 8 out of 10. I think out of our back 4, he was the most solid. It seemed like we'll talk about our center backs in a minute, but it seemed like he, without with him pressing high up the field, our two center backs were lost. But granted, as a high flying center back, that's what he has to do. And he did his job well and got an assist. So props to him. Obviously, I think the center backs have to do more work on their part if he's higher up the field. But
yep. Moving on to the center backs, Mauricio Pineda, I gave him a 5 out of 10. And honestly, he just really struggled throughout the game. He really struggled to get into it, made a couple of really key mistakes that could have cost the U.S. And I think the Chicago Fire defender, just you could definitely tell there were a bit of nerves because those turnovers that he had really could have cost the U.S. in this game. David Ochoa bailed him out a couple times. The other center back, Justin Glad, also bailed him out a few times. But that's definitely something they need to mend up by the time they play Mexico next week.
Yeah, and that's a huge shocking point right there. Just the two of them together, they did not seem convincing at all, especially when our fullbacks were higher up the field, when it was just, the Costa Rican attack coming at both of them. It was almost like you knew something bad was about to happen, especially on Pineda's side. But I gave Pineda also a 5, and then Glad I gave him a 6 just because he did have to come out and cover a few times for Pineda, and obviously they did get a clean sheet together, which is good. But they're definitely against an opponent like Mexico that there may be bigger problems to tell with them two together.
See, I actually gave Justin Glad a 7 out of 10. I thought he was really good. Like you said, he had to cover for Pineda a couple times throughout the game. I thought he read the game well. He had a couple really nice challenges and tackles that stopped any Costa Rican attack in their way. He had one bad giveaway. That's probably why I knocked him down from an 8 out of 10. But you could really tell that he was the most senior player in this team, being that he's played more professional games than anybody else. Moving on to the right back, Aaron Herrera, I'm giving him a 6.5 out of 10. I thought he was good defensively, didn't do too much going forward. A lot of that had to do with the second half where the U.S. were basically on the back foot for most of the half. So I'm going 6.5 for the right back.
Yeah, I wasn't as generous. I didn't give him the half point. I gave him a 6 out of 10. But for primarily the same reasons as you mentioned. He didn't get too involved, but I also didn't think that he contributed to as many of the problems as there was in the middle of the park. So nothing too crazy, but nothing too special either.
Moving on to the midfield, Jackson Ewell started in that holding midfield role, moved up into the number 8 role after Andres Pereira got subbed on for Djordje Mihailovic. I'm giving Jackson a 6 out of 10. This is another guy where a lot of the stuff he does, yes, is unappreciated. With that being said, I don't think he was at his best today. I thought his distribution was poor compared to his standards, and you'd really expect more for him. We thought he'd be the leader of this team, being that he has so much experience with the senior national team and with his club, the San Jose Earthquakes, and it just really wasn't there today. With that being said, the U.S. did get the win, so we got to keep it a little bit positive,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as we go further on into this episode, it's good that we have this kind of mentality, kind of expecting more out of these players, because at the end of the day, I don't think that this Costa Rican team should have gotten away that easily. I think our team is way better, and we should have given more things to think about. So it's definitely a good thing that we could be hard on our players like that, because we do have high standards now. But going back to Jackson Ewell, he is the epitome of in this team, I definitely had to have higher standards for him, and he did not perform tonight. He was kind of the big, one of the big factors as well as to why things were so messy in the center of the park, just constant giveaways at times. And it was just really messy on his part, just not the kind of performance that you would want from the player that's meant to be the leader of this team. So I also gave him a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, and something that has to be noted, and we're definitely going to talk about this in our full show coming up, previewing the senior matchups later next week for the U.S. men's national team. Jackson Ewell's not in the senior team. He's in the Olympic qualifying team. You could say part of that is the necessity that U.S. soccer sees in qualifying for the Olympic tournament. However, Luca De La Torre, a young midfielder who plays over in the Eredivisie, he was expected to be in the Olympic team. He made it up to the senior team. There are players that are younger than Jackson Ewell. The best players for our team in that midfield are all younger than Jackson Ewell. So that's definitely something that has to be said. But moving forward to the more number 8s in the team, Hassani Dotson, I gave him a 6.5 out of 10. Same problems as Jackson Ewell throughout the game. A couple bad giveaways. However, I thought he offered a little bit more going forward at times. He was able to drive forward and break down that defensive line for Costa Rica. However, nothing really ever came out of it. Part of that was probably due to the lack of an outlet on the right wing. Benji Michel did not have his best game, but I'm giving Dotson a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, just because that right side of the field was just so quiet, especially in the first half. It was just obviously, as Mikel was somebody that I wanted to see some more of, but just nothing was going down that right hand side, and that for both of them, Dotson as well, was just disappointing. So I gave Dotson a 6 out of 10, and then however, Mihailovic, I think was probably the best of the midfielders. I gave him a 7 out of 10 just because he was more of obviously a positive outlook. He had a few giveaways as well, but I think compared to the other two, he was probably the best in the middle of the park.
Moving over to the other center mid, Djordje Mihailovic, newly of CF Montreal, over from Chicago Fire. I gave him actually a 7 out of 10. I thought his set pieces are what separated him from Dotson. Created a couple really nice chances. The one in particular for Justin Glad in the first half, nice little glancing header off of a free kick off the right side. I thought he was fine. Didn't really have any bad giveaways. With that being said, did not have really that many extraordinary moments. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking as well. He's definitely one of those players as well that we're going to want to see more out of in the future. But today was definitely a more positive than the other midfielders for sure, especially as set pieces. Those look like they do have potential on them. So it could be interesting to see where he plays a role in the future, because he definitely was one of the more positive outlets for the midfield tonight.
Moving on to the front three, left-sided winger Jonathan Lewis. I'm giving him a 6.5 out of 10. He had a couple nice crosses, a few times dribbled through the Costa Rican defense, and it looked like he might be able to set something up for the likes of Jesus Ferriera, Benji Michel. A couple times the crosses, there was just nobody home. But at the end of the day, I'm giving him a 6.5 out of 10 because there just wasn't really any end product from the man from Colorado.
Yeah, I gave him a 7 out of 10. It was good to see just some movement up high up the field. Lots of darting runs up the top. Obviously not super involved though. No end product. But I think he's a lively player, and he likes to butt his head into some situations, and it's good to see that energy on somebody. Super young still. He's got some way to go, but I definitely thought he got more involved than Mikel on the right hand side. So
right wing Benji Michel from Orlando City. I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. I thought he was poor. He had a couple really nice turns, got himself into some good positions, but did absolutely nothing with it. You'd expect more from that. And obviously, I don't think that Jason Kreese thought that he'd have to play Michel. We were expecting Yuli Yanez to be the guy on the right. However, because of injury, he had to be forced out of the team. But Benji Michel, he just needs to be better.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at my paper tonight. It's like I sent it to you.
Great minds think alike, brother. Come on.
Yeah, we have like so many of the same ratings, but definitely, he was like probably, along with Pineda, my lowest player on the field, just because really no output at all from a player that we wanted to see some more out of. So really disappointing night from him. Just nothing much to say. So just a 5 out of 10 overall.
Striker Jesus Ferrera, I've given him an 8 out of 10. Like you said, there are a couple of things he really does really well. He presses well. He drops back and opens up space really well, playing in that Roberto Firmino-esque role. Really well done to find space to score his goal off that Sam Vines cross. He's a player that seems to be in the right place at the right time a lot. However, there was just a little bit something lacking from the finishing. He could have easily scored 3-4 goals, and this game could have been wrapped up like that. However, like I said, the finishing just wasn't there tonight for him.
Yeah, it's like, to round it all off, you guessed my rating once again, 8 out of 10. I do not agree with the comparison to your Liverpool striker. However, I don't like any of our United States players being compared to Liverpool players. That's all. But yeah, 8 out of 10. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, good movement, good pressing, really high energy from him, and that's kind of, I think, exactly why he got the nod again after coming out with the senior team. It's just that he offers that energy that a lot of these strikers do not do not bring to the table. So we saw that against Trinidad, and we saw it again tonight. But the one thing that is going to separate him from the Q, with if he does try to make it into the senior team, the Q of Josh Sargent, Josie Altidore, Zardes is the finishing. So that's definitely gonna, in those scenarios, you see Zardes, you see Altidore putting at least 3 of those away. So that's definitely gonna have to improve on his part. But in this scenario, U23 World Cup qualifying, he bagged him a goal, and that was the game winner, and that's what matters. So props to him. So 8 out of 10, baby.
And Jesus offers something different than all the other strikers do. If you think about the likes of Josie Altidore, Josh Sargent, even Sebastian Soto, who came on for him during this game, I thought his ability to drop deep and play, like I said, the false 9 role, those other guys don't do that. You think of Josie Altidore, Giassi Zardes, even Sebastian Soto. Those guys are hold-up players, your true typical number 9s, pinging crosses in, lethal in the air. And then you got a guy like Josh Sargent, who's your typical poacher, and that's not Jesus Ferriera. If he can continue to develop and can continue to keep putting in an end product and scoring goals, he's a real option for the senior team going forward towards 2022.
So you think he's a better false 9 than Sebastian Lletget?
Without a doubt. Yeah, and he's also 7 years younger, so there's a lot of room to grow. Whereas Sebastian Lletget is in his in the prime of his career, to say the least. But before we wrap Wales it up,
with seeing Lletget at false 9, that
is true. Hey, that was the debut for a guy that we're gonna have a big time talking about in our next little YouTube episode coming soon. Yunus Musa, can't spell Musa without USA, baby. That will be coming soon to the YouTube channel. But just before we wrap things up here, the U.S. will be on their way, still in Mexico, to play the Dominican Republic in the second match of the Olympic qualifying tournament. Ryan, what do you want to see from now until then? What type of improvement do you think we have to have?
I think what we saw tonight, and why I talk about it being so sloppy, is just because they've only been together for a short amount of time. And I mean, they're kind of getting fresh, getting onto the field pretty early, and they've got growing as a group to just to sort out some chemistry and get kicking on together. So that, I think, is definitely something we're going to see throughout the week improve. You'll have less of those like sloppy errors, better communication and everything. And that's going to have to improve if we're playing against a sharper opponent like Mexico, because we're not going to be able to be bailed out, by Ochoa that many times again. So I'm definitely going to want to see this team click more and take the next week or so in training to kind of fix all these sloppy errors so that we're sharp and ready to play an opponent like Mexico.
Yeah, like you said, the Mexico game, that's the big one. If they can, a point or 3 points against the Dominican Republic pretty much locks up a spot in that one-off game to win, to go to the Olympics. So obviously it's a huge game against the Dominican Republic, but the Mexico game, that's your biggest rival. You gotta have your A game for that one. And hopefully the Dominican Republic game, while it is a massive game, is a chance for the guys to get their legs under them, get more match fit, so they are fit and firing for the Mexico game next week. Like we said, if you guys missed any of this post-game show, go check it out on YouTube. But we up shortly. Also, Yunus Musa special going up on YouTube soon. Full YouTube and podcast form. Stumbled over my words today. A little bit flustered, just like the back line of the U.S.
Frazzled. After that 1-0 win.
Yep, 1-0. It's been a while, man. But like I said, we got YouTube stuff, Yunus Musa content. Then we got a full podcast coming out, post-game shows, halftime shows for the senior teams. Lots of good stuff. Busy period coming up. Thank you guys all for joining. We'll see you guys very soon.
We'll talk soon, guys. See you.